Welcome to sportsbookreview.com. I'm Flash, and it's the Preakness at Pimlico. We're off to Baltimore, Maryland. I'm joined today by Brian Zipse, who's former editor of the Racing Nation, Horse Racing Nation even. Brian, how are you, sir?
Flash, I am doing great. Great to be here with you.
Yeah,
Let's talk some Preakness.
Yeah, I'm licking my wounds. I really am. After, obviously, the Kentucky Derby and Authentic coming home, I sat in this very chair all season long saying how brilliant Authentic was. And then I went cold. I was on 'Tis the Law. And then coming down the stretch, I'm almost looking like that. Oh, no, what have you done? And now he's a favourite at 9-5. And in Europe, he's only at plus 150. And he draws the 9 stall.
Yeah, Flash, I was surprised when you told me you were on him the whole year, and then at the last possible second, you got off him 8-1. You might, you're not going to get that in the Preakness. He looks like a pretty heavy favorite. Fields are on today, 9-5, the 9-hole, as you say. So he's the outside speed, and he's definitely the horse to beat. I think the time the race goes off here in America, we're going to see about even money on Authentic.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be up there. I mean, how do you see the race panning out? Because if the boys, if they let him go and he sets them fractions, he's going to be hard to peg back, especially with the long straight. So the slingshot off the bend is not going to be in someone else's benefit.
Yeah, well, I think you know, some horses weren't in the Derby that are in the Preakness, and I also think they learned their lesson. Maybe they took Authentic just a little bit lightly with that speed, and maybe they let him have too easy a time on the lead in the Kentucky Derby 4 weeks ago. So now in the Preakness, I think you will have horses putting a big X on the back of Authentic, Flash. I think he's the horse everybody's watching, and there is other speed in here. There are other horses who could show a lot of early speed. So I expect them to take the race to Authentic early and often here in this mile 3/16 Preakness. And to tell you the truth, even as the horse to beat, even as the favorite, I think there's a real opportunity for some horses, maybe some long shots, to make up some ground if they pressure Authentic too much early.
The 1,000 words, a late scratch in the Kentucky Derby, and there's so many stats that will back up that when Bob Baffert has 2 runners, it's the outsider of the 2. 1,000 words, he has low mileage on the clock, and he's got good early.
Yeah, 1,000 words, you know, 1,000 words was a wise guy horse, wise guy selection of a lot of people in Derby, and he was going to run in the Derby until about 10, 12 minutes before the race. He got a little over anxious in the paddock, and he actually flipped over. The horse was completely fine, Flash, but they had to scratch him when he went down there in the paddock. So an interesting horse. He will not show as much speed as he did last time, which was a while ago now, about 2 months out. He beat a pretty good field in the Shared Belief. There was no speed in that race, and he actually went to the lead. There's a saying here in America, watch out for the other Baffert, like you talked about a little bit, and I think 1,000 Words is one of the horses, a dangerous horse to beat the field, beat his stablemate here. So Baffert, who has won this race 7 times. No one's ever won the Preakness more than Bob Baffert. He's won this race 7 times. He's got the favorite, and he's got a very interesting horse in 1,000 Words.
Yeah, a lot of the sharks, they were saying that the value was definitely on 1,000 Words, and they didn't really have enough time to swap over because, as you say, it was only 10, 12 minutes before the off or post time that he was taken out. Now, what about Art Collector? Art Collector drawn on the other side of the course in free, and he's around plus 250, plus 300. If there's going to be one horse to beat, surely is it this horse because of the speed he's got?
Yeah, Art Collector has been absolutely terrific. He hasn't lost a race this year. He's kind of worked his way up. He was running against slightly lesser competition earlier in the year, but then he showed his class in his last 2, especially 2 starts back when he really took it to the field in the Bluegrass, a big race at Keeneland. And he came back with an easy win. He, too, was a late scratch from the Kentucky Derby. He was a few days before because he had a little bruise on his heel, but again, nothing to worry about in the long haul. So he's completely healthy now. And yeah, he's a horse who's either been on the lead or been close to the lead before. But like I say, with Authentic having that big X on his back after winning the Derby and doing it in impressive wire-to-wire fashion, I think horses like Art Collector and maybe a few others are going to want to use their speed and try to take it to the race. Art Collector is a deserving second choice off his record. He's been very impressive. We still really don't know how good Art Collector is or how good he may be. And this is kind of the test. He's going to take the race to Authentic early, and maybe it's the best two horses going at it in the first quarter mile.
Yeah, well, does that mean they'll set it up for something else? Because I've got Swiss Skydiver sitting there as third favourite around +6, +700.
Yeah, Swiss Skydiver is interesting. Everybody's interested in her. She's a filly, the only filly in the field, and one filly has won the Preakness in the last 90 years or so. That was the great Rachel Alexander a little bit more than a decade ago. So everybody's a fan of Swiss Skydiver. She ran against fillies in the Kentucky Oaks and actually ran second. Her trainer wasn't completely happy with the ride. She's getting a different rider for the Preakness. Robbie Alvarado, a veteran rider, will be up on her now. So they switched riders, but she's shown a lot of speed, just like Art Collector. She's either on the lead or near the lead in all of her races. She's very classy. It's a little bit more rare in America for the fillies to run against the boys in the big races, especially at a distance on the dirt. But McPeak has wanted to run her in big races all year, and he's following through. The Preakness was on their schedule. She actually ran a very good race, went second to fillies in the Kentucky Oaks. She won a lot of races before that. She's another one who probably wants to make sure Authentic does not get an early lead. And just like you said, Flash, I think what this spells is this might be a Preakness that sets up for somebody to pick up the pieces, whether that means a long shot rallying for second or maybe even a long shot winner of the Preakness. I think it's setting up that way.
I think having the fillies taking on the Colts in October is a lot more balanced than it would be if it was at its normal time earlier on in the year when the fillies are a little bit later developers. But the big eye catcher out the Kentucky Derby was Mr. Big News. Ran wide, ran on, and looked strong at the wire.
Yeah, Mr. Big News, he's been a strange horse. He's a very well-bred horse trained by Brett Calhoun. And, he looked like an up-and-comer. Then he didn't quite get it done in a few races. Then he won a race at Oaklawn Park, a stakes race at Oaklawn Park at big odds. And everybody said, Mr. Big News is an up-and-comer to watch for the Kentucky Derby. Then we didn't see him for a long time. His return race was terrible. He didn't run a lick in his first race since that upset win at Oaklawn Park. So then he enters the Kentucky Derby, and even though his connections, Calhoun is saying, watch out for Mr. Big News. He's getting good again. The previous race looked so bad that, again, he was long odds. Kentucky Derby, he made a big rally, a big move. He looked like he actually had a shot at the top of the stretch, but he wasn't as good as the top two, Authentic over the favorite Tis the Law. But in that big field, he ran a very good third, and he's one of those horses who can rally. 12-1 over here on the morning line that came out, Flash, and he'll be breaking from the inside, the number 2 hole.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do exactas, trifectas and things like that, I think he's definitely a horse because you know that he's going to get further. So if they do go too fast, he will be doing his best work late. Now, the horse that I'm really interested in, I'm not obviously going to bet it because I can't go against Authentic, but is New York Traffic, because I think New York Traffic burnt up his sort of petrol tank 3/4 way through the race, didn't see his race out. Low mileage on the clock. I fancy that there might be different tactics this time.
Yeah, I mean, if you like New York Traffic at all going into the Kentucky Derby, you have to give him at least a shot in the Preakness. He was one of the preferred long shots. He was, he's not a real big long shot in the Kentucky Derby at all. Unfortunately, he broke badly out of the gate. He really bumped hard into Honor AP. And I think from there, his race was never going to be a good trip because he's another horse, another one, Flash, who likes to be on or near the lead. 2 starts back, he stalked Authentic all the way around at Monmouth Park in the Haskell, and he was actually gaining on Authentic pretty fast there at the finish. So 2 starts back, Authentic beat New York Traffic by a nose at 1 1/8 miles, a little bit shorter than the Preakness. New York Traffic did not have a good trip in the Kentucky Derby. If he gets that clean trip this time, another horse who could be a threat early, but also an interesting long shot.
Brian, let's set ourselves on the thoroughbreds. We're in the gate. It pings open. How do we expect the race to unfold?
Authentic has kind of an advantage, I see, Flash, because he's breaking from the 9-hole, and he can, with rider Johnny Velasquez, one of our best riders in the country. He's been around for a long time, won a ton of big races, knows really how to handle a speed horse. He can kind of see what goes on early with all the other horses inside him. I'm talking mainly about Art Collector in the 3-hole, Swiss Skydiver out of the 4-hole, New York Traffic out of the 7. If one of those horses wants to gun and be pushed hard out of the starting gate and go right to the lead, Authentic has the ability to sit in second as he swings out from the outside. Not nearly as far outside as he was in the Kentucky Derby, but the 9-hole, he's still outside all the other speed, and he can kind of watch what happens. If no one goes for it, certainly Johnny V will do what he did in the Kentucky Derby, just work his way inside towards the rail during the first trip down the stretch, and he'll take the lead. But again, I think they're going to pressure him. So one of those horses, Art Collector, Swiss Skydiver, New York Traffic, maybe more than one of them, will want to put the pressure on, and that probably means they'll come out of the gate pretty hard, and we should see a contested race into the first turn. And that really was, I think, one of the keys of the Kentucky Derby, where either the speed did not break well or Tiz the Law was not really wanting to go to the lead. So Authentic was able to kind of get into that perfect position on the lead and towards the rail from his outside post in the Derby without too much work. He ran pretty fast to do it, but it was a pretty smooth trip to get to the lead. This might be very well taught for in the Preakness.
Yeah, that's the big problem everyone's going to have, is if it gets into that rhythm, then he will be unstoppable, because not only will he be coming into the straight in first, he will then be able to lengthen, and the big straight, I think, is going to be a massive advantage. As he breaks from the post positions, he's got that straight to just ease across. There's no rush. He hasn't got to burn up. And then when he slingshots off that final turn, again, he's got the best part of two furlongs to just basically unwind. So if we think that they're going to possibly go too quick, and this is probably the only way that I see Authentic getting beat, who comes from the back?
Yeah, the good news, if you're betting this race and you're thinking that the pace might melt down a little bit and that could help Authentic get beat, the good news is you have some long shots here that are very viable coming from off the pace. None of the outside horses, or none of the horses who want to come from farther back, I think, will get bet. 1,000 Words, I said, he's a little bit of a wild card in that, as I said, he wired the last race. But I think he'll be a little farther off the pace. He won't be way back, but I think he'll be mid-pack early. And I think he's a horse who certainly could make a move on that turn. But the two horses, I think, coming from a little farther back, they'll both be double digits on the odds board here, are Mr. Big News to run another big race. He's looked good since the Derby, and Calhoun is still talking him up. And then Max Player. And Max Player we haven't talked about yet, but he's kind of a horse who's been picking up a check. He's been picking up the pieces. He's been passing tired horses when he was third in the Belmont, third in the Travers, and then fifth in the Kentucky Derby. But when that pace starts to melt down, when they go too fast early, that really, especially on dirt, that really can set things up for a horse like Max Player. I don't love the fact that he's never gotten over the hump against good horses, but with the proper setup, Max Player becomes a player in the Preakness.
Yeah, great. Max Player's only kept great company, though. He's only been in like group grade 1s, grade 2s. And the beauty, if you are a Max Player fan, is that he's going to get a nice, easy trip, because on the outside, he's one inside Authentic. Authentic, is going to break. He's going to stay straight. And if he doesn't stay straight, he's going to go right. So he's definitely not going to be impeding the Max Player. Fabian, let's put up the prices, because we're going to try and maybe look for a winner, an exacta, and a trifecta, Brian. Obviously,
Sounds
I'm
good.
going to we got Authentic there at plus 150. I took the medium, really. I know that there's 9 to 5 available out there. I don't expect that to be anywhere near that price. And if it is, I think it could well turn out to be a gift. But I think the winner is Authentic. I'm going to struggle to bet it after, obviously, I went to I missed the wedding, so I don't really want to go to the funeral. But I see Authentic being the boss in this. I just don't know what I'm getting from Art Collector. So I think it's one of those where I've got to go with Authentic. Who do you go for as an outright winner?
I want to beat Authentic because I'm looking at this race as a pure handicapper. I'm not worrying about the name. I'm not worrying about well, this is the Preakness. I've got to go with the horse that I think is the best horse. I'm looking at this race, the handicap, how it's going to be run, and throw in the odds. So therefore, I have to go with some odds. I'm going to give Mr. Big News a shot. I think, I don't think the Kentucky Derby. I know Brett Calhoun a little bit. He doesn't talk up his horses unless he's got reason to. I think this is a horse who loves the distance. 1.25 miles was good for him in the Derby. The Preakness, 1 mile 3/16 with a lot of speed. He's not going to be the crazy odds that he was in Kentucky, but he's still going to be double digits. You bet a 12-to-1 shot or a 15-to-1 shot in the winner spot, and you get him to win. You're awfully happy. You're in a bad spot, though, Flash. After getting off an 8-to-1 shot winner in the Kentucky Derby, it's hard to get on a 6-to-5 shot even money shot in the Preakness. So I feel for you, but I'm staying off Authentic. I was a loser in the Kentucky Derby. I'm staying off him. I'm sticking to my guns. I think he's beatable with all this speed. Mr. Big News will be my top pick, and a long shot one at that.
Okay, Fabian, stick that up again, please, as we look for maybe something that's going to come for the exacta. Now, I'm going to put forward 1,000 words, and I'm going to be hearing a Bob Baffert 1-2. Do you think the 1,000 words could be in first or second?
Absolutely, yeah. I think 1,000 Words is an interesting horse, as I said. He will get bet a little bit more maybe than Mr. Big News and Max Player, but he also has the advantage of maybe getting first jump. If I'm right about this pace being testing, 1,000 Words might be the first to take advantage of that. So I do like 1,000 Words. He'll definitely be one that I'm putting into my exotics, exactas, and trifectas. They got him at 6-to-1 on the morning line. That's probably about right. He might drift up even a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, he's 8-to-1 in the European books. But there again, Authentic is very short on the European books. They're not wanting to take any chances whatsoever. Now, for the trifecta, now this is where we're going to get plenty value. Are we going to say that Art Collector can't be out the 3?
He can be out of the 3. Like I said, we just don't know how good Art Collector is. Art Collector, after the race, we could be saying is the best horse in the race. And you don't know for sure. He's looked awfully good. I have to use Authentic for sure in my exotics, underneath maybe a little bit more than most people. But yeah, Art Collector is the other obvious horse to include. I do like him better than the filly. He beat Swiss Skydiver in the last 1/8 of the mile on the Bluegrass pretty good. I respect what Swiss Skydiver's done all year long, but just from a handicapping perspective, it's hard not to like Art Collector better.
Yeah, I mean, Art Collector in the Bluegrass put plenty daylight between himself and the rest of the horses and eased down. I mean, properly eased down, as if to say, hey, well done, chap. You have done your running. Now, Max Player is probably the biggest price on there. I mean, New York Traffic is around the same at plus 1,600. Max Player to pick up the dead wood at the end.
Yeah, that's the best play you can do with Max Player. And unless the speed is just suicidal, I think I do prefer Mr. Big News, as you can tell, just a little bit to Max Player, but they're the two most likely ralliers. But even if they don't win, Flash, this is the good thing about the exotics. You get Mr. Big News, like he did in the Derby, or Max Player into these exotics, maybe even both of them in the exotics in the Preakness, and you got some money. I think it's likely that they'll get up for third or fourth one, or maybe both of them.
Yeah, and that's another bet we'll talk about, because in 72 hours, we're going to be having a chat again. So on Friday, we'll obviously, I dare say that there's going to be a horse scratched or there's going to be market moves, and we can just go over the final preparations of the Preakness at Pimlico. Brian, good luck. Try not to think over the next 3 or 4 days about Authentic getting beat. And we'll come back on Friday and we'll try and cement our first exacta, trifecta, and maybe a couple of long shots to show.
Flash, I love it. You stick with your guns with Authentic. I'm going to stick with my guns and try to beat him.
Yeah, I just can't. I will, but at the moment I'm running scared. Honest to God, I can. I bet it 3 to 5. I bet it at 4 to 7. And then when it goes to 8s, I'm like, I've just gone cold, and it was red hot. Brian, I'll see you on Friday. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the Preakness. It's the third leg of the Triple Crown. We've had Tis the Law, 1. Authentic, 1. Now, who's going to take the third leg? We'll see you again soon. You take care.